No Cap Fund presents The Representation Station. All right, welcome in. It is The Representation Station with a very special episode. I'm here with my co-host for this evening, Roger Scott. Roger, how are you doing today?
Good evening. I'm good. It's Friday night, so I'm better than I was last night
Yeah,
because it's weekend now.
and better than Monday night when we had the AWS blackout. It shut down Riverside, and we
OMG.
had no live stream on Monday.
Yeah, I had problems. I'm an accountant, have clients all remote, and so my life is on the computer and the internet, and I was having some stress.
Yeah, it's funny. Maybe concentrated power isn't the right way to go.
Not in any instance.
So we thought since we missed Monday night, we were going to have a guest on, Jeff Jacoby, who wrote an article about uncapping the House in the Boston Globe. Walter was going to be there, but there was some other things we were going to talk about, specifically the No Kings protest, which you were a part you partaked in on the
I
weekend.
did.
So we figured we'd do a special episode. Walter's at his college reunion this weekend, so he's unable to join us. But we figured it was worth the conversation. Um, so I guess let's get started there. Tell me about your experience about No Kings.
Yeah, the experience was positive in really every way. There was a couple of things that were different from before. I went to the one in Greensboro, North Carolina. For those who may be listening and don't know, I live in central North Carolina in the town of Burlington. Greensboro is one of the nearest places that would have rallies. Rallies not too far away. Durham, Hillsborough. I had lots to choose from, and I've been to these other towns to protest in the past. It's kind of a thing I do these days, it seems like. And I'll talk about that a little more in a bit. But I went to the one downtown Greensboro by the Guilford County Courthouse. I reckon there was 2,000 people at that location at the peak. There was a second event in Greensboro out by the interstate, and somebody came to ours after having been there and said that people were lined up for 2 miles along the major like retail area leading up to the interstate. So there was a good turnout in Greensboro, as there typically is. Um, it was a beautiful day. To give you a little background, Guilford County population is about 550,000. It's the third largest in North Carolina. Greensboro, that county has three congressional districts. Right, or I should say, three congressional districts touch that county is how I should put it, because that gives a more disgust factor, and I am disgusted about it. Um, there's 5 colleges in that county, 4 of them in Greensboro proper. Um, demographically, it's 47% non-white, non-Hispanic. The Civil Rights Museum, they have a Civil Rights Museum there. You may remember having heard about the Woolworth lunch counter protests, and that was in Greensboro. Mixed race city council, eight eight plus a mayor, so that's a council of 9 for 550. Actually, for the city, it's fewer citizens. City council is 8 plus the mayor. So I do a little calculation based on the size of the county. So dividing by the number of commissioners, that gets you about 69,000 per per representative.
Mm.
Much better than we face in the state legislature or in the U.S. House. So I thought you'd be interested in that statistic. And the mayor is Nancy Vaughn. She's a Democrat. She's been reelected 3 times, most recently in 2022. So that gives you a little snapshot of Greensboro, Guilford County. It's sort of like I said, the third largest in the state. And in the middle of the state, it's Raleigh's the capital, and then you've got Raleigh, Durham, Greensboro, Winston-Salem, sort of in a stretch. And
so
I'm dead in the middle of that.
so you were out there pumping up No Cap, right? You were telling people about the cap on the house.
Yeah, in fact, I have a picture of a sign. Can I share the screen? Did we figure out how to do that?
I know how to
Oh
do it.
yeah.
Do you know how to do it?
No, I just saw the button hit. So,
Here we go.
share which screen? None of those. All right, well, I'll just share. I don't want to share that. Jeez Louise. All right.
You're,
Share that and move that into its place. Do you see a picture now, or do I have to reshare?
no, I see it looks like a chat
Yeah.
GPT screen.
Yeah. I was looking up Baker v. whatever earlier. Um, Go back to there. All right. So the problem is I've got this thing on here, and then there's the photos. Now maybe I can share that one. We'll see if this one works better. Share. Mm, It doesn't want to look at my photos.
Hmm.
Window, maybe. Oh, there you go. There. Now, can you see a photo? Yes.
Yes, I can. The
So that's the
people's
sign
house
I went
hasn't
with.
grown at all since the Titanic was still seaworthy. I love it.
And of course, I've got y435.org featured in the lower right corner. And in my weak attempt at drawing a capital up in the upper left, it kind of is meant to resemble the American flag, right? It's red and blue writing, and you've got this capital thing in the upper left. Yeah. Um, I don't think it was as effective as I hoped it would be, and I'm designing a new one.
Hmm.
And with the new one, this Y435 is going to be the central feature. I'm thinking it'll be a more of a portrait orientation rather than this landscape. And Y435 will take up the center with some sort of border around it to call it out, and then just wording saying,
You
Congress
know,
has been
I
stealing
could
your
uh
representation for a century.
I could put one of those together for you and email it, and that way you could go to a local printer and get it printed out on poster board to hold up if you want.
That would be cool. So
Uh,
I can't decide whether I think y435.org should be stacked up in those three-letter stacks, or whether I mean, if it's a landscape orientation, I could leave it all as a single line, all
mhm,
three elements together. But if the way I want to do it, it just makes it look a little different. Maybe it'll catch more people's attention.
mm.
Anyways, we don't
I
need to
like
do design work on the podcast.
I like the idea of just asking the question, the why 435. Why do we have 435 representatives? Just as an entry level to get people like why are you at to answer a question, you know?
hmm Well, and that's kind of it. I did engage with a few people during the course of the um, demonstration on Saturday, uh, and specifically pointed to that area of the sign, because this sign is not just a piece of poster board I was holding it with my hands. I've got pieces of wood behind it to give it structure, and another piece of wood so I can hold it up high. But as people were walking away, they were noticing that sign, because it's not just like all the other signs that are. Oh, by the way, I have to mention the most clever sign I saw on Saturday was one. I think the guy must be a dentist, because it said "Fight Truth Decay." I thought that was clever.
Dad joke.
Yeah, I thought it was clever. So, anyways, that's my idea. Is my sign is more of a call to action. So I was engaging with a few people and trying to get them to visit the website and join the conversation. Is, I think, how I was putting it.
So what was the reaction from people when you talked to them?
Uh, they said, well, they're shocked, of course. Some of them said, "That doesn't sound right. I'll have to look into that." So I had, the little cards you had put together for us. I had some of those in my pocket, and I would whip it out and hand it to them. Say, "The website's on there. Here's some cursory information, and the website there. Please go you read what we have there, and then go sniff out around and look for other sources to corroborate. Don't take my word for it. Just have the conversation. That's all I'm trying to get started here.
Mhm.
Think about it, talk about it. And if you discount it, boo-hoo.
Were there other people at the No Kings, like, pushing issues, or, like, was it I mean, I saw a
No,
lot
it
of
was
stuff on the news. I saw people in weird costumes. I saw people, just kind of, like, having fun, dancing
mhm,
around,
mhm.
what was it on the ground like? Like, what were other people doing?
Costumes are not weird, Jeff. They're whimsical. They're
Yeah,
humorous.
well, I don't know.
Yeah, whimsical. Um, the weather was beautiful, probably a little hot for my liking, but the crowd was, like I said, about 2,000 people. There were at some point, not during the whole thing, but at some point there were 4 or 5 of those sort of oversized inflatable costume things going on. There was a few people dressed up as something like a Statue of Liberty kind of thing, or you know, Tweedledee and Tweedledum, all that usual stuff, right? Um, One sort of angry dude came stomping down the sidewalk carrying a Trump Vance flag from the election. He was largely ignored, and he beat a hasty retreat once he had completed the circuit. That was really the only issue. Lots of honking of horns. I've made a mental note to take earplugs with me, the little foam earplugs, next time I go, because the honking is just ridiculous. Now, I was a little disappointed there was no stage, which there hasn't been before when I've been to Greensboro, but they had some loudspeakers up on the steps of the courthouse. So it's sort of a raised, elevated, natural, well, not natural platform, but it was already there, pre existing. And people would speak or whatever. There was none of that this time. There was no tables set up in the lawn between the courthouse and the sidewalk. There were a couple of captains, running around with the yellow vests on in this case to be the sort of authority figure or represent the organizer kind of thing. It was a lovely time was had by all. A little bit of live music, just you know, people with a banjo and one of those Irish drums. I don't know what you call them, but they've got the single drumstick you whap back and forth on the surface of the drum.
I don't remember the name of that either.
But anyways, um, so it was a beautiful day, and I hung around. It was scheduled for 2 hours. It was to end at 2 o'clock. I hung around till about 2:30, and there were still a few dozen people standing on the street, whistling and honking and holding their signs when I was walking away. So it went well past and there was police standing back there watching the whole thing. They were not very present during while it was going on. There was one that drove up and parked on the sidewalk, paved area off the street, across the street. I'm just sitting there. A couple more were on the corner, and then later on, a few more showed up, just standing in the shade, chatting. Had nothing to do. Now, bear in mind, like I said before, this is it's a blue county, and it's I did not expect anything untoward necessarily to go on there. Um, it's not a hot spot for that kind of thing anymore. That happened back in the '60s.
Well, it kind of feels like we're heading into the 60s again, doesn't it?
Yes, it does. And I'm not a lifelong protester. It's not a activity I've craved my whole life, but in the past 10 years, 15 years, I've become accustomed to it. I know how to build signs with wood and structure so they'll stand up. And I know better than to go without the earplugs too, but this time I just forgot.
Hmm.
I think I'm gonna have to consider investing in some other things. Gas masks,
Well,
um,
I hope not.
whistle, yeah,
I
maybe a
mean,
drum,
so
snare drum.
far the protests have been very peaceful, and
Yes.
I know that it sounds like obviously the administration doesn't like it, and I think that's
Hmm.
mainly because Trump is very thin-skinned, and it's largely an anti-Trump protest, for the most
Correct.
part. Um,
Correct.
and he doesn't like that. So they're trying to downplay it or negative it, make it very negative. But I think they should be careful because, you create this negativity around it, you're going to create anti-protesters, and that's where you get division
I-
and
I'll I'll
whatnot.
take it a, I'll take it a step further. I'm already protesting Trump, right? But then these congressional Republicans offend me by suggesting that I would have to be paid to exercise my First Amendment rights to go out and protest what I don't want to see happen, that I would have to be paid to share I'm offended by that. I can't imagine how these people came to have such a low opinion of their fellow Americans.
I don't
It's
necessarily
just beyond me.
I don't necessarily. So number one, part of that is politics, right? Like that's how these things go. Number two, there are there are paid protesters on both sides of the aisle. I mean, most of the people that knock on your doors for political campaigns, they're paid by
Yes.
somebody, So like it's it's kind of ridiculous that they use this against as a political weapon against the people they don't like because they are in fact doing it themselves and they would never, of
Hmm.
course, admit it.
Hmm.
But like I wouldn't be offended by it. I would just be like, "You're nonsense," like, "I know
Yeah.
better."
Yeah, I'm being told by people who are in Congress that I'm being paid to attend a Hate America rally, both of which are false. Sorry, I'm offended.
Well, and that it
Sorry, not sorry, I'm offended.
well, that's the thing. It's definitely not a hate America rally. And I think there is these
But
2
how
different.
much of the right believes that it is because of what they're hearing from the members of Congress?
Well, I see, and this is the thing. I had a friend text me about that Steve Bannon interview about Trump getting a 3rd term.
Yeah.
She's a Democrat, and she sent me a message and she said, "Jeff, you're the only conservative that I believe I can trust on this issue. Tell
Hmm.
me, like, why do conservatives support this person?" And what I'll say is Trump is not a conservative, okay?
Right.
Conservatives support incremental change while following constitutional principles. None of that describes Donald Trump, okay? Donald Trump is a progressive, okay? Progressives seek fast, radical change through any means necessary. Historically, you go all the way back to the Greek Republic. This is the difference between progressive and conservatives in the way that they operate in government. Conservatives like stability and structure. Progressives like making things better based on whoever's in charge, right? So like you get Republican progressives, Democrat progressives. Go back to the progressive era. Teddy Roosevelt was a progressive. Woodrow Wilson was a progressive, right? Like nothing really changed as far as the ideology as the president changed. And, it's, to the thing is like, it's not the right per se. It's a small group of people who have a lot of power right now. And they happen to support Donald Trump because Donald Trump has the power and they want the power. It's all about incentives. They're not the right people to be in power right now. They just want the power. They don't know how to exercise the power properly. Um,
Hmm.
so,
Well, yeah, the characterizations that you just given of conservative and progressive are pretty simplistic. I don't want to get too deeply into it, but there's more to the conservative position than supporting incremental change. There's a lot of pushback and obstruction and slowing it all down. And you know, MAGA, take us back. Right now, the maggots, they claim conservative. I understand that doesn't meet your definition, but they feel like they're conservative and they're trying to drag us back to traditional values or whatever the hell they're trying to drag us back to. I don't know. So it's pretty simplistic. You know, it's much more nuanced than that, or it would be an easy problem to solve.
well, I'm talking about it from like a structural point of view, like where people fall. So like JFK, right? He was a Democrat, but he was a conservative progressive, and that's actually what Teddy Roosevelt labeled himself as well, right?
Hmm.
There were places where he had conservative values, specifically with JFK, it was on the economy. And there were
Hmm.
places where he had progressive values, specifically on like civil rights and foreign policy. And so like I with somebody like Trump doesn't have values other than
Correct.
himself, right? So like there you
Dollar
can't
value.
dollar value, right? So like it's
Somebody wants to ask him, what's your sign? He said, dollar sign, bitch.
he's a gangster rapper now.
I guess.
So like, I
He's the greatest in the world. He's a rapper like nobody else has ever seen. He's the best rapper in the history of rap.
oh man, somebody should make like an AI video of
I
like
gotta put this bourbon
Eminem,
down. I'm getting out of
like
control.
Eminem and Donald Trump in like the 8 Mile like battle rap.
Oh
I just
yeah.
like somebody needs
Yeah.
to make that AI video. That would be hilarious. That we should do that. I should spend some
Taking
time on
notes.
that this weekend.
Taking notes.
All right, so let me get into this protest, the No Kings thing, because I made some tweets. I didn't go to the No Kings thing because I was doing a local event for my small business at Haymarket Day.
Right.
Um, but I did make some tweets about it, and I have a follower, Kevin, who's I think he supports uncapping the house, but I think he's critical of me and my positions and Walter. I think more Walter than me probably based on like our leanings towards the Republican Party or conservative being conservatives. And so one of the tweets that I had, I basically just I agreed with Justin Stapley, who wrote the No Kings protest are a case study in why the left is not the answer to the rise of Trump. And Kevin wrote, why is that? It's laughable that Justin uses an event that isn't even over today, and somehow it's a case study of how not to stop the rise of Trump, who actually rose 10 years ago. Maybe 10 years of those failures are case studies. Justin disappoint me. And so he goes negative on Justin, which, I think Justin's just a guy trying to do something, right? And there aren't enough people doing something. So maybe not take down the people that are fighting against the guy that you also don't like. Maybe make that person your
Well,
friend instead of your enemy, number one. But
was it a takedown or was it constructive criticism? I didn't read it.
th-
So your impression is it's a takedown, right?
I mean, Kevin tweets a lot at us, and I would say
Okay.
the constant criticism on the things that he disagrees with us and the silence on the things that he does agree with us on is why people aren't in politics. Like, and,
Mhm.
and it's why you can't beat Trump, right? Like, the case study is you're having a protest against Trump, you're calling it No Kings, but anybody that's a political theorist like myself knows that that's not true, because if it was really a No Kings protest, then No Cap Fund would be the center point behind all of those protests, because that's the only way to decentralize the power away from the executive. Because the reality is, whether it's Donald Trump, Barack Obama, or AOC for whoever comes next, like, the presidency has too much power, and that is ultimately what the problem is this person that you don't like has more power than they should, and instead of actually working on, like you described, you had a call to action at the protest.
Yes.
There's an organization to get people out, but there's no organization to make real change, which to my point is like, what's the point? You know,
Well, no,
I
Indivisible's been around for years and years, and they don't just have these protests once a quarter. They have a lot of stuff going on. So
well,
you don't you're not
I'm talking about No Kings specifically, right? I'm talking about
okay.
the No Kings protest. If you're going to have, here's my thing: if you're going to organize a big protest and you're
Hmm.
going to generate all of this energy, it should be for something. Like, there should be
Well,
a
yeah.
purpose to it. There should be a purpose to it. There should be an end goal, right? Like, when Martin Luther King brought everybody to Washington, right? There was a goal. There was a purpose to it, right? It was for civil rights. It was for equality, the right to vote. And for this, again, it's a whole bunch of people that don't like Donald Trump, that are expressing the fact that they don't like Donald Trump, which I can get on board with. I'm not a Donald Trump fan either, but I also don't want to waste my Saturday, you know, saying
Well,
that I don't like Donald Trump. I want to spend my energy doing something that's going to make a change. That's I think that's Justin's point of what he was trying to make, is like, we've seen the anti-Donald Trump thing in Principles First. Like, it didn't work. It doesn't work. All it does is embolden him and his supporters to fight
I
stronger.
disagree. We've not seen 7 million before, and odds
But
are
seven
it's going to
million,
grow further.
what did it accomplish?
Did it well, I don't know that it accomplished anything, but it's a spectacle for one thing, and it gets the view out to people driving by that, see this thing happening, that had no idea, that are disengaged, don't know what's going on, right? Are not following politics. All of a sudden they're confronted with a bunch of people on the street. So it's a spectacle to sort of raise awareness. But in addition to that, I've mentioned this before in podcasts and various things. In my situation where I live in North Carolina, every person who represents me in a legislative body is a Republican, and I disagree with them, having intimate knowledge of their positions, their votes, and so I disagree with them. Now, in North Carolina, the General Assembly has had a stranglehold, or the Republicans have had a stranglehold on the General Assembly for so long, they have taken steps to weaken and, to some extent, neuter the statewide offices, governor, attorney general, all that jazz, because they can't win at the statewide level, right? They gerrymander in order to retain power in the General Assembly, but at the statewide level, Roy Cooper was elected twice as governor. Now we have Josh Stein, attorney general, again and again. So here I am. Oh, and one more thing. I've mentioned this before too. In North Carolina, there's a law on the books since 1917 that prohibits citizen driven ballot referendum. All right. So nobody that I support represents me in Raleigh or in Washington. Right. My the Democrats at state level that I'm more likely to agree with can't really do anything for me. And I can't put a ballot referenda on because of this law from 1917. Let me ask you, what avenue do I have to make my voice heard, to make my wishes known?
But see, but that's my point. You should have an avenue, and that avenue should be about talking about representation. And there are very wealthy and powerful people in this country that put on the No Kings protest, and they're ignoring the real problem because
Oh,
ultimately, these protests are for the same thing that Donald Trump is for. It's for a small group of people to have power and notoriety. They do not care about actually solving the problem. You're right, it is a spectacle, but it shouldn't be a spectacle. If you're going to put your energy into something, if you're going to put your time and your wealth into something, then it should be for a purpose. And the purpose should be about getting people representation. And everything that you just said, nobody heard about. I mean, you had 2,000
mhm,
people at your event, right? And you maybe reached, I don't know, 300,
10. What?
400 if you're lucky, right?
Mhm.
But these people have real power and they're more interested in getting TV spots to talk about Donald Trump because who's the big names behind that are pumping No Kings, or at least on X? It's George Conway and Joe Walsh, right? Joe Walsh is a former Tea Party. Like, we saw the Tea Party. What did they accomplish, right? It was a
Mhm.
big spectacle, but they did very little other than usher in the Donald Trump wave.
They did
And
a lot of damage.
well, they ushered in the Donald Trump wave, right? And George Conway, who's just, I don't even know what this guy's motivation is anymore, other than the fact that he just wants to be on TV and he wants attention. He's an educated man. Like, these are real problems that need to be addressed, and he doesn't really care because he has representation. He has the money to get what he wants talked about, but we don't.
Well, that's why I go to these things with a sign that says
I
y435.org. And
I get it. I get
I
it.
say that in a sort of a flippant way, but I'm serious. That's the reason I go. There's a local party here in Central North Carolina, the Down Home Party. You mentioned earlier people who come knock on your door during election season. They're the only party that knocked on my door in the past 3 or 4 years, and as their price for having done so, they had to listen to me for 15 minutes talk about a tapped house. But we made a little connection, so, I go to their things too. But it's this is these people, the reason I go to these down home, little local party events, the reason I go to these, protests with my call to action sign is because I'm among people who are motivated. Okay, angry if you want to call them that. They're motivated to do something. They might as well do it with us.
No, and I'm not discounting you being there, and I'm not
Oh yeah,
discounting you doing that. I'm saying, you know, I I made a post. I reposted somebody else's post that's critical of it, and I think that like I'm an individual who's limited by my circumstances. I'm a
right.
father of five. I'm a small business owner. I've had some medical conditions right now that I'm going through.
Hmm.
Like, I can only do so much, right? And I think it's frustrating for somebody like me who puts a lot of work in to see other people who have less limitations, have more ability, waste it. And then for people like Kevin who, kind of just are watching us, it's almost
Right.
like he puts me on the same level as them, right? Like, I should be able to do one of the criticisms was that he sent is like, well, if you had a table at No Kings, I would have helped. Two things to that. Yeah, sure. By all means, if you want to help, reach out and tell me you want to help.
Sign up.
But
We're
like,
looking for captains.
I'm one person. I have to go find you. Like, that's the crazy part about politics is the people following always think that the leader has to go track them down, like he doesn't have other responsibilities. Again, I'm a volunteer, man. Like, I'm sacrificing just to have time to talk about this,
Oh,
much less,
agreed.
all of the stuff that we do is typically funded by my own pocketbook, like
Yep.
it's baffling the the critics, you know, like, what is the Teddy Roosevelt, the quote? Is
About the man in the
the
ring?
yeah, get in the arena for crying out loud, you know? Like,
Exactly.
yes, I am criticizing another leader, and you're criticizing me who wants to be a leader but without resources. You give me I guarantee you, you give me resources, you give me $500,000, I will make uncapping the house a thing, okay? You give me resources, I will do a better job than Joe Walsh, George Conway, or anybody that's hunting for a TV spot. You know why? Because I have a purpose. I have a mission, and all they're looking at is their own self-interest, okay? And
Mhm.
that's not gonna cut it to stop Donald Trump, okay? Because
Right.
Donald Trump is about self-interest, and you can't fight fire with fire, okay? You got to throw some cold water on it with a different purpose.
And, as far as, I say, over the past whatever number decade or more, I've become a protester, you know, this right here, this conversation we're having, this little enterprise that we help manage, this is a protest. We're protesting Congress, not, we're protesting congressional misbehavior instead of presidential misbehavior, but it's still a protest, right? So we're channeling what we feel into something productive. And that I want to, here you go. I want to give that opportunity to all those fellow protesters that I meet when I go out. I want to give them the opportunity to channel their unhappiness into something productive. I got to work on my sales pitch. I'm not a natural salesman.
That's okay. I mean, Donald Trump is a natural salesperson. I don't want
Oh
to be
yeah.
that. So
Oh, dude, there's a woman, I can't remember her name. She gave a TED talk about introverts. And she actually had written a book about it. She's done a lot of research. She's a knowledgeable PhD type person. But she made an interesting observation. And I think I've mentioned this before, back in the day, the people admired the deep thinkers, right? Because they didn't have the opportunity to see people speak in person that often and so forth. The thinkers were more revered. It's only in the 20th century that the salesman has become the dominant personality type that we see, right?
mm,
Yeah, I despise being sold anything. I will walk out of a place empty-handed, even if I want the thing. If somebody presses me too hard, I'm constitutionally unacceptable. I just can't do.
yeah, I'm kind of the same way, to be honest with you. Like, for me, there's a balance because I understand, like, this is just the world we live in, and I am in a position of sales. I own a small business. I have to make
Oh yeah.
sales, and like, the reality is I'm not a pushy person, and which is also probably why I'm struggling in the political arena, like, to get traction. Is because, like, I'll send an email and I'll send a follow up, but like, I'm gonna respectful. Like, if you're not gonna reply to me, it's like you don't value my time. I'll move somewhere else, right?
Oh, it's even better than that. We view things through the lens of our own experience. I'm an introvert. I want to sit in the dark and write code, but I have to engage with clients in order to earn a living because I'm an accountant.
Right.
Sorry, I interrupted you. I didn't.
No, that's fine.
I just had to
Uh,
get it out.
and so, like, I'm a little bit more patient, but the people that come on really strong, like, typically with the salesperson comes on strong, I want to ask a question that will tell me if they know what they're talking about or they're just selling me the talking points, right?
Hmm.
And and I'll ask a very pointed question, and if they don't know the answer, that's when I check out. Now, if they know
Yep.
the answer, then I'm good. Right? Like, you can push me all you want because I know that you've done your homework. That's what I really care about is, are you telling me the truth or are you lying to me? And if you haven't done your homework, you're lying to me because you don't know what you're actually saying. You don't know
Hmm.
if you're telling me the truth, which is a lie.
Right.
That's what Donald Trump is. That's the thing that frustrates me the most is, like, he just reads other people, or he doesn't even read, but like, he just says other people's talking points. He listens to it and he reverberates it back, right? And so, like, I want somebody that does their homework. Like, a lot of people criticize Ronald Reagan, but the guy did his homework. He read, he understood what he was talking about. You can disagree with him on points,
Hmm.
but at least he tried to at least he understood what he was talking about, which I think is different than Donald Trump.
Oh, definitely different. I think I even voted for Reagan once. That would have been about, I think 1980 was my first time I was eligible.
Well, and that would be a time where there were two conservatives running because Jimmy Carter was a conservative Democrat and Ronald Reagan was a conservative Republican who would argue he had some progressive ideas as well. So, like, the conservative progressive thing is kind of hard to understand, I
Well,
think, in politics.
Well, and that's hard to understand because it gets scrambled like we do in America. That maybe it's a feature of what we do,
It's
but
we're a melting pot, man.
the great realignment, right? Democrats and Republicans in the 60s over civil rights. It happened before with the Whigs and all that jazz, but we're constantly it's there you go. It's
I
it's
just
like one of
finished
those
that one.
lava lamps, right? You remember lava lamps? You turn the
Oh
thing
yeah.
on and a blob goes up, then it falls back down. Another blob comes up. It may have some of the same stuff in it. You don't know. It's just
Yeah.
constantly blobbing.
Yeah. So, all right. So, to my point about no kings, I am not against protesting. I'm not against protesting. I'm just saying you should have a purpose. And in the same way that I would criticize people that follow Donald Trump, I would criticize people that follow, I don't know, whoever's running the No Kings protest, is to say follow somebody that has a purpose and that you agree on the purpose.
It's
In
indivisible is the organization.
okay, and what's their
Ezra
purpose?
Levin, I think, is the most notable name. The name I remember from the leadership of Indivisible is founded
But
anti-Trump. It was
it's
founded. It's DNA. It's
I
in its
just
DNA.
anti isn't going to get it done right now. Like we're at a moment in American history where we need something to vote for, not something to vote against, and we need a purpose, and that
Excellent.
purpose should be reform.
Okay, well, just let me ask you this. So Donald Trump, despite what all this bullshit they're talking about today is ineligible to run for president in 2028. So they will put up somebody else, most likely JD. Right? You going to vote for JD or are you going to vote for the opponent?
I don't know who the opponent is, and my guess is that Marco Rubio would win the primary.
You think there'll be a primary?
Yeah.
You don't think Trump will say JD's going to be the nominee and that's the way it's going to be? And they all fall in line. You don't think that'll happen?
I think if Trump is going to throw his weight behind somebody, he's going to throw his weight behind somebody with the last name Trump.
Interesting.
I don't think that Donald Trump cares about JD Vance. I think JD Vance is a
Oh,
clever
he definitely
politician.
doesn't.
I think JD Vance is a clever politician who has his own center of power within that structure because of the technocrats that support him.
Yep.
And I think that he's playing his own game. And I think that look, power it concentrates and breaks apart all the time, right? It concentrated to get Donald Trump to win this election. The Kennedy faction came together, the Vance technocrat faction came together, and the MAGA
Elon.
faction came together, right?
Hmm.
But the reality is with Trump out the door, the MAGA faction is going to fall apart, okay? Because without Donald Trump, it doesn't have a leader, which is
Right.
going to leave the Kennedy faction, which will splinter on its own and was kind of small to begin with. And now you're going to be able to create a new faction. Rubio could potentially create that new faction with old guard Republicans. He might be able to bring them back into the fold. And then Vance he's going to pull in the MAGA crowd back to his side, and he's going to, maybe try to keep that Kennedy part on him with him as well. And he's got the money, like he's going to have the financial support because of the Elon Musk and the Peter Thiel crowd. So,
Hmm.
but I don't know. I think Marco Rubio has proven to be a more productive member of the party at this moment than JD
Well, he's more
Vance.
adept. I'll say
And
that. He's more adept for
and
sure.
JD Vance has flipped back and forth so much. I think it poses a weakness for him when it comes to a primary because when in a primary he's going to have to start courting different factions to win the primary votes. He's going to have to start going back and forth again, which is going to exacerbate his weakness.
Okay, so in an environment like that, well, so you're talking about the primary, and your forecast, the prediction is not the right word. Your forecast is that Rubio would likely win against Vance in a
I mean,
Republican primary for the 2028 nomination.
I don't think that anybody could forecast this far in advance. There's so
Hmm.
many different variables that are going to go into it. If I'm a voter and I'm looking at those two options, I'm going Rubio over Vance, plain and simple.
Hmm.
Right now.
Right. Crazy.
But let me lay this scenario out. Let's say Donald Trump does something crazy, like legitimately crazy, and JD Vance becomes the person that rallies people to the 25th Amendment and gets him out of office. And then JD Vance runs for office again. Do people rally around JD Vance?
Doubtful.
I don't know. Because here's the thing, JD Vance could flip all the way against the MAGA crowd again. He could unite the old guard Republicans. He could remake himself. People remake themselves in politics all the time. It's totally plausible. It could absolutely happen if the right circumstances are line up. I don't want to see a circumstance where that happens, because obviously, like, Donald Trump is going. I mean, if he does anything to get the 25th minute at this point, it must be like totally so far off the rails we can't even comprehend it, because he's already done so much
Right.
that, like, that
No,
deserves.
no, I don't know. I think that's a stretch, man.
Well, of course it's a stretch, but the idea of Donald Trump being president at all is a stretch. 25 years ago, if somebody came to you and said Donald Trump is going to be president, you would have laughed at them. Okay? If
Correct.
so, like, I mean, everything's a
I
stretch
had a
in
higher
politics.
opinion of Americans at that point. Yes, definitely.
But you know that the Americans aren't really making the choice. You know that it's a small group of people that have control over the system because the House is capped. You know, if
Yes.
more Americans would be engaged in the political system and be more knowledgeable of what's going on if they had more congressional representatives.
Yeah, well, and if they also had a better educational attainment.
Well,
Right?
and
You know,
our
one of the
uh,
things I talk about, you've heard me say before, is, the last time the House was expanded, the high school graduation rate in America was about 18%, 18%, and now we're high 80s, approaching 90. Right? Um, that's people are so much better able to synthesize the information and make choices. You talk about people remaking themselves in politics and having comebacks and that sort of thing. That works well when your base is poorly educated, right? When your base has higher critical reasoning skills, right? You're less likely to be able. Look at Cuomo. He's trying to remake himself in New York. He's going to get crushed by Mamdani, right?
yeah, well, Cuomo
The,
is a
the
special
people
type
aren't buying
of,
it. No,
well,
whatever. The
he's-
people aren't buying it, right? The ability to remake yourself is becoming uh, in some ways it's becoming easier. You hire a PR, hitman, and they go out and they try to remake your image. You go on a few talk shows, whatever, and you get a job, right? But that doesn't mean people are forgiving you or would vote for you if you ran for office again, or will donate to your church if you were a fallen mega pastor, whatever, right? I think there's less and less tolerance for that stuff as we go forward because we just see it so much. And it's like, if you continue to reward that behavior, you'll get more of that behavior.
yeah, I mean, I do think that forgiveness is a big part of life, that you've got to be able to be forgiving. And I think it's a big part of American life and what makes it work. I mean, we forgave people who supported the British during the Revolution. We forgave the South after the Civil War. Like, there has to be forgiveness in these things to bring people together, because ultimately that's what a republic is. It's allowing different people of different ideas to coexist equally and have different, a different opportunity to voice their disagreements.
Okay, so in that regard, what was the wisdom of pardoning the January 6th? The people who were convicted. Well, what was the wisdom of that?
Well, I don't that wasn't
What,
forgiveness, though.
forgive them?
That was not forgiveness, though, because it was pardoned by the guy who called them there to do the thing. That wasn't forgiveness, that was a political favor, and,
Have you
I would
forgiven them?
I mean, I don't let's put it this way. There are plenty of people that were there that I understand why they're there, and I don't think they should be punished. There are other ones that I should be punished and should serve out their whole term. And if I was president, I would.
So forgiveness is conditional. Some of them should be forgiven. Some of them should not.
I think that if you I think it's circumstantial. As far, look, we're not talking about forgiveness in this aspect. We're talking about justice, because this is such a small group. When you're talking about half the country going to war, you forgive the
What?
Sou-
What half?
no, no, no.
MAGA's not half.
No, I'm talking about the Civil War, right?
Oh, okay.
Like, but
Okay. Okay.
there was still conditions. There was
Sorry.
forgiveness, but they still
As a
weren't
knee
able
jerk
to.
response, I do this so often because MAGA seems to think they're half, and I do it all the time. So
th-
sorry. Sorry, I
there
stepped on you.
there was conditions for the forgiveness, right? Like not
Oh,
everybody
yeah.
Grant let everybody walk out with their sidearms, but they necessarily weren't able to serve in the legislature immediately, right? There was a
Hmm.
whole reconstruction period, right? So like there has to be justice has to be served in order for forgiveness to be fulfilled because
Bingo.
like
That's the problem.
I'm a human, right? Like Jesus forgives me and Jesus forgives them, but I'm still human. I need to see justice. I
Mhm.
need to see repentance. I need to know that you're not going to do that same thing to me again. Um all right.
And we don't know that at this point because we got a whole bunch of people who got let free for having done it.
Well, and I think I've seen some stories where some of them have been arrested for committing very similar types of crimes. So like
Or worse.
right. But to be fair, we see that on the left too, where like they're like, "Oh, we can't prosecute these crimes. Let's let these people
Whatever.
go." And you go,
Bullshit with the left. Left, right, I don't give a shit. They were in jail because they broke the law and they should stay in jail. If they're left, they're right. Bob Menendez should rot in prison. He's from the left. I don't give a shit. You break the law, you get it. That's the problem. We don't have accountability in this country.
"No, I
That is
agree."
that is the
Who's
problem.
who was the other guy
Forgiveness,
that
forget about forgiveness. I want accountability. We can forgive them after they've served their sentence.
who was the other guy, the Democrat that Trump pardoned for corruption? Oh man, I can't think of his name. I can picture his
Yeah,
face,
neither
but
can I, because I don't know
I
what the
can't,
hell you're talking
if
about.
I think he was from Illinois. Wasn't he like the governor
Oh,
of Illinois?
Blagojevich?
Blagojevich, wasn't he a
Rod
Democrat from
Blagojevich, the
right?
former
And
governor who tried to sell Barack Obama's vacated Senate seat?
didn't Trump pardon him too?
I think so, yeah.
So like to your point
Lack of
is like
accountability.
lack of accountability. Trump is just he's saying, "Hey, you can be as corrupt as you want. Do it." He's
Yeah,
trickled
absolutely.
trickle down behavior. Trickle down behavior. All right. Well, we're running
Well,
up on.
it's tone at the top. Yeah, you've heard me talk about the accountant's view of tone at the top, the behavior, trickle down, same idea.
All right. Speaking of trickle down behavior, we're running out of time here, and I had one little story I wanted to share and get your thoughts on it. So as I mentioned, I was at Haymarket Day.
Yep.
Um, and I had a brief confrontation, not like escalating or anything, with one of
Hmm.
my local reps. So my state representative, um, he was in the parade. Now, for context, I have tried to meet with this state representative. He's my delegate several times, and I cannot get a meeting. I even door knocked for him and Danica Rome, who's the state senator at the time,
Right?
just thinking that he would be there so I could like talk to him,
Hmm.
but he wasn't there. Um, he was walking in the parade, and I just asked him. He came right up to my booth and handed my daughter's candy, and I said, "Hey, um, I can't believe I'm blanking on his name. I can see his face. I'm so sorry.
Is it
Um,
hung or hung or
no,
something
no,
like
no,
that?
no, no, because this is my state representative.
Okay.
Um, and I said, "Hey, do you support J. Jones' text?" And he looked me in the eye and he's like, "What? What are you talking about?" And I'm like, "Come on, you know what I'm talking about. J. Jones' text, about the violent text that do you support that?" And he was like, "Oh, I'm so sorry. I didn't really know what you were talking about. I just was taken aback." And so that's my first thing is like I call BS on that because I've
Right?
been in rooms with politicians. They are prepped on these things. They know
Oh,
about
sure.
these things. They have
Oh,
talking
yeah.
points on these things.
Of
Every time they
course.
pretend not to know something, that's a lie or they don't belong there. Like if you don't know about it and you're not prepared to answer that question, that's also another reason you don't belong in the position that you're in. And
Yep.
so like my question was to him as he walked away, and I yelled it louder because he walked away from me. I said, "Do you think that the attorney general should be if the attorney general isn't going to hold himself accountable, how is he supposed to hold other people accountable?" Right? And he walked away and I yelled this. My dad and my mom were there, and my
Right.
dad, it was like you're just gonna make yourself look bad. You gotta be quiet here.
Spectacle.
This isn't the time." And my argument was, "Well, he won't meet with me because I'm a
Right.
Republican and he's a
Right.
Democrat, right?
Right.
He won't represent me because I don't have the same letter next to his name." And my argument is, we all should be loud when politicians are not held accountable, regardless of the R or the D. I have been loud about Trump not being held accountable in my Republican. I will go to my Republican Party meetings and I will talk about this, and they will listen to me because they will let me in the room. But I can't go to my Democratic Party meetings; they won't let me in the room. Right? At least the
Man.
Republicans, they will disagree with me. Right? They will yell back at me, but at least they hear what I have to say. I can get in there, but they won't even hear what I have to say. And my argument is why should I be quiet? Everybody else should be loud. And so, like, as this was ending, a couple people walked by and they said, "I'm with you. I agree with
Uh-huh.
you. I agree with you." And here's my thing. Listen to this one text that I think it's actually not the most egregious of the text that was sent, but it encapsulates perfectly why he should not be in power. And it says, "Yes, I've told you this before. Only when people feel pain personally do they move on policy." Look, the entire purpose of government is to disagree with our words and not fight. Okay? So we don't have to feel pain personally. We can actually make change before that happens. If you believe that the only possible way to get change in the Virginia legislature is for the Speaker of the House to suffer significant personal tragedies through violence, then you have no business being a public official. And
Agreed.
and and to that state representative who I can't remember your name. Hold on, I'm gonna look it up real quick.
Ah, the symphony. There it is. The Burlington Symphony. Every Friday and Saturday night, we get the
Oh, it's
sirens and
Josh Thomas.
alarms. Josh Thomas. Okay.
Josh Thomas. And for Josh Thomas to not to pretend like he doesn't know about it and then not be able to answer the question, the reality is like this should be an easy slam dunk for the Virginia Democrats. If
Hmm.
for years you've been telling us that Donald Trump is bad, you support the No Kings protest. A lot of the Virginia Democrats were at the local No Kings protest, right? The problem with Donald Trump is there's no accountability. You have somebody in your ranks that you can hold accountable. Where's that trickle down behavior, right? The trickle down behavior. Show us. You tell us that that guy's doing it wrong. Show us how to do it right. Show
Uh-huh.
us how to do it right. And they're not showing us how to do it right. And that frustrates me.
Here's a question for you. Are you familiar with I'll call it a series because I've seen at least 2 episodes of called Breaking the Deadlock. I saw it on PBS.
Mm-mm.
It's guided debate, I guess is the way I would phrase it. There's I think 8 people, all noteworthy. There's like former electeds. John Tester's in one, Mitch Landry's in another. There's Ann Coulter. There's Soledad O'Brien. There's the woman who's the CEO of Moms for Liberty, Eddie Gaude Jr. There's a wide Rick Wilson. So there's a wide variety of people, that you've seen on TV representing various places on the political spectrum, and there's the narrator, curator, professor, whoever he is, who guides it, and it's some dilemma in the town of Liberty in the state of Pennsylvania, right? And they go through and they talk to these people based on their experience. What should the reaction be? It's very interesting. They're hour-long episodes. I highly recommend. It's called Breaking the Deadlock. I saw it using the PBS app because I'm a sustaining member.
Hmm.
I'm not sure how you might go out finding it, but I highly recommend it.
I'll have to check it out.
It's exactly the kind of civil discourse that we need in this country.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Well, this was enjoyable, Roger. I appreciate you doing a Friday night live stream with me to talk about these issues. And and I think to the point of what you were just talking about, civil debates, we disagree on many things from the political aisle, right? And yet we can
Yes.
sit here and drink a whiskey and drink a coffee and and to the point about Kevin is like, let's start to come together on the things that we agree on and maybe stop fighting so much on the things that we disagree on. I think that's the crux of my argument against No Kings is like, yes, it's against Trump, but like, let's come together on something that actually fixes the problem, which is executive power. And you and I, both agree that uncapping the House is the best way to do that.
Well, absolutely. And if we can garner a movement of 7 million people, or what is the political science theory of 3.5% of the population, yada, yada, blah. You've seen it in the news too.
Yeah.
You know, if we're able to get 25 million people, okay, that would make a statement. Just
Let's get it.
imagine the statement we'd make if we 25 million of us making the statement we want to make.
Let's get
That would be awesome.
we could do. I mean, my argument is like the American revolutions was a civil rights revolution, right? We wanted
Hmm.
political rights, we wanted representation, okay? The Civil War was it was about civil rights, right? The three constitutional amendments that came after it were the civil rights constitutional amendments, 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendment. The 1960s, the Million Man's March, was about civil rights. In each one of those cases, those people were asking for representation. We
Yep.
are no different than they are. This is our generation's civil rights movement. We want representation, and we deserve it because that's how a representative democracy works.
Yeah, we're much different than they are. We're much more sophisticated than they were. And that's why we're having trouble getting the critical mass we need. But no, you're right. There's a through line here, and we're part of a long tradition. And as I said earlier, this is a protest. We're protesting the misbehavior or inaction or theft, or call it what you like, of Congress. They've been, you made a point, something early on in our relationship when I first found you on X, right? We started this little conversation. I, like most people, I'd heard the term checks and balances in the context of the Constitution, and I thought it meant the three branches of government. But it's not. You made a point about the balance in the Constitution and the three interests that are supposed to be balanced, right? And I think about that a lot. That's one of the reasons that, I think I wrote to you one that I found value in what you write, even though I didn't think I should because you were on the right side of the spectrum. I find that one of the things you wrote about was the balance, the interests that need to be balanced: the federal interest, the state interest, and the people. Well, since 1929, the federal interests haven't been eroded. The state interests haven't been eroded. Only the people's interests have been eroded. And because of that erosion, the Constitution is out of balance. And that is the root of the problem.
Yep.
It's just that simple.
Yep, it is. All
I
right.
think about that a lot, honestly.
Yeah.
That was
We got to
wisdom you
get
shared.
we got to get more people thinking about that. We'll keep working. Monday on the show, we've got Scott Howard. And yeah, it should be a good show.
I agree. I'm looking forward to it.
All right, man. I appreciate it.
Party on. Don't hurt nobody.
Peace. Peace and love.
Good night.
Thank you for tuning in to the Representation Station. Don't forget to visit our website at www.y435.org and sign the Declaration for Representation. And don't forget to follow us on social media. You can find us on X at NoCapFund, on Facebook, NoCapFund, on YouTube at Uncap the House, and on Instagram at NoCapFund. Thank you, and don't forget, peace, love, and representation.